live with the mighty, awesome warrior and princess with the sword, Timmy Oroth. Hello,
Thank you so
Timmy.
much. What an amazing introduction. I kind of feel like I have to live up to this now.
You already
Pull
are.
out a sword halfway through this conversation or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, for people that who know you, you know you're living up to that you're trying. You're stretching yourself, you're serving your clients. How have you been? What have you been up to in the last
I've
weeks?
been really busy, to be honest with you. Like, I'm super grateful. I have a lot of amazing clients recently, and I've been very busy serving my clients, which is always a nice way to give back to the community and also making a living out of what I actually enjoy doing, which is pretty
Mm.
amazing. And just reading the lovely feedback that is coming back, it always warms my heart. So it's nice to see that all the work that I've put in is being appreciated. So that's something that I personally get a lot positivity out from, so which is really
Mm.
good.
Mm.
And I'm looking at ways now to improve my automation. One of those things that my systems broke down over the weekend. All of
Oh
my
no.
automation is gone.
Oh no.
It happens. Entrepreneur life. Hey, what can you do?
Yeah, for that's what I was saying. For that, Kajabi is quite interesting. So, guys, we sometimes bring as well a little bit tools and marketing into this, so that you see what we are working with. And I think, like you mentioned, Timmy, as an entrepreneur, you try actually different tools, and you try to automate stuff after a while. So yeah, it can become really cumbersome, especially if you have multiple tools, and then you work with WordPress,
Yes.
and then maybe HubSpot or whatever you're using. It can become
I'm
really
using two of those already, so keep guessing. Maybe you can guess all of my systems.
Mailchimp for email, but I
Nope.
suppose you do it with HubSpot. You
I
do?
don't like MailChimp. I don't know. I used to like it
Uh,
a while ago. I think it's a great place to get started with, especially for someone who maybe doesn't want to invest in that email marketing because they have some good free options as well to kick things off. But I personally am not a big fan of them anymore, but they are great. So I'm not trying to dash them. They are really good. But I use different stuff. I use a smaller company called Pebbley. And yeah, I know they're not that popular yet. And that's why I always love jumping on this new technology and these new software out there and support the smaller businesses. It's just my way of trying to be a bit more conscious about what I use. But
mm,
because they are smaller, they have incredibly amazing customer service and
mm,
amazing support. So for me, that's a lot more important that the brand recognition, and it does the job. So I got a good deal with them as well, including a lot of automation as well. I use them for automation, so it's pretty good.
mm.
Maybe that's something to look into.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, we were before we jumped online, we were talking about the different tools you can use for automation and for marketing. And I remember like 10 years ago when you think about, Aweber or
Oh yeah.
Mailchimp, that was kind of the name of the game. And if
Hey
you think,
Weber, I forgot about that.
yeah, I mean, and you were paying like $50, I think, for that.
Hmm.
So there was like a big thing, and now obviously you have tools like Kajabi or like the website, different providers like yeah, WordPress with WooCommerce or Shopify, wherever whatever you're shopping. So or
You get
using.
decision paralysis. I think there are too many options to choose from now. That's one of the biggest issues, not knowing which one to choose and how you make a decision. But
Yeah,
it's
and I
good to
mean,
have a
talking
list.
about today's topic, because I know you guys might stream in a little bit later, because there's some of you might be returning home, or like myself, still in the office, or Timmy may be at home, and then you're trying to kind of pace everything with your family life, your work life. So don't worry if you cannot listen to this now. Maybe you can listen to the recording later. So feel free to reach out, or you might be able to watch the recording on LinkedIn. I suppose that's what we figured last time.
Yes, we did it.
Yeah, and obviously today's topic is this little tech corner. It's always interesting because that's something that we see obviously in the industry happening. That a lot of tools are being either conglomerated, and you see like tools like HubSpot or Kajabi are kind of having everything at one, or you have the approach that Timmy's talking about a little bit, empowering the smaller guys.
Yes.
So I'm thinking to me as well because people will stream in a little bit later. But what has been on your mind since the last topic, and was there something you were thinking about, and maybe some of the topics you came across that we were talking about last time, and you noticed them with your clients?
Yeah, definitely. Like being more in tune with your body. I think that was probably my biggest takeaway, to not just constantly be living here, but also to pay attention to your physical body as well. And I actually have a client who does embodiment coaching as well. So it was kind of like an actual little addition after our conversation. I had a session with her, and it was nice to see, obviously, her perspective as well, and some really good exercise as well, just little things, how to get back into your body when you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, or how to even notice when your body is signaling that you might be stressed. And I've been quite stressed, actually. I'm putting my hands up, so I'm taking this Thursday off. I'm booking myself for a massage. I'm going to the spa to recharge. So I took on the advice, I think, quite well. So now I'm going to just take a day off during the week and spend that in the spa. So I think I'm a good student, maybe.
Mm. Yeah, you're trying, and I think especially in your case, you're serving people a lot, and you're trying, to listen to people's problems and probably help them with their business, and that's a big challenge. And I mean, you need to recharge yourself, and like we were talking last time about, taking care of your body, maybe through fitness, or even like what you said, massage, wellness, yoga, going to sauna, or even
Mhm.
hiring a coach. And that's what probably people do when they work with you. They hire you to help them to gain perspective and give them tools. And I think it's smart, because I know that you're probably similar like me, and I notice it now. I was just talking about it with my partner. I think we underestimate how much our body can carry over a
Yeah.
period of time. It's not just burnout, and I think we talked about it in the mid 30s. People, or then maybe after 40s, people somehow have their midlife crisis, and it's called for a reason. It might be decision fatigue, or just like needing to figure stuff out. But oftentimes it's the past decade, maybe even, where you just didn't take the break and you just keep piling forward long work days,
Yeah.
or no break, like you just said. So I think it's super smart.
I
You were
needed it because I haven't taken a break. What you're describing, that's exactly what I've been doing. I would constantly in go mode and action mode. So I needed to take a conscious decision to see, like, okay, I feel like I'm a little bit on edge now, and that's not me. So let's take a step back and just disconnect for an entire day. And I told everyone that I'm not going to be available on that day. So do things before and after Thursday, and it's important to have those little breaks. Doesn't matter what you do, what your job is. If you run a business, or if you're in a management position, or if you're a graduate, it doesn't matter what level you are. You need to have these regular breaks as well.
Yeah, 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 I totally agree. It's I think very gray area of a lot of people, but in the end, if you look at it clearly, it's very clear. We got to take care of ourselves step by step, and I think that's what we're gonna talk about today. About another three principles that might serve you guys. And I know for some of you, you will be streaming in, and so Timmy already gave us a little bit refresh, and from the last, what resonated with you. And I think for me as well, what I actually maybe to kickstart today's topics, for me, the key takeaway last time, or from last time, was, hey, let's really pause more often. And sometimes I feel like we have this notion in our head that things have to run in a certain way. Like, I don't know if you like to plan your year, to me, sometimes I like to do it, but I used to be very extreme in it. And, from vision boards to like really bottle boards where you have every month's like goals here and there. And I think it's a good thing. But I see that it kind of backfired as well. It created this internal
Yeah.
pressure. And when you don't achieve those goals, you somehow get over it, but over a period of time, it might dawn on you and maybe be heavy on your back. So I don't know what's your approach towards this, but for me, it was figuring out from the last lesson, hey, it's okay that things go a little bit slower, and that it doesn't always go as the speed of light as I would like things to go. And you don't always need to have everything figured out, which I hate a lot. But yeah.
You need to give space to actually create things and make things happen, because if you're going to be constantly just over planning, you're going to be get so like focused on the how, and you're probably going to end up not even noticing a better solution to get there. So as you said, like if you were over planning things, I used to be like that. I did that as well. My calendar was filled literally from morning until night, and it's not healthy to over plan things as well and be so like rigid about your goals and your plans. You need to allow a bit of playing space so that you know that this is where I am, this is where I'm getting to. I kind of know the how. I planned it. I have my steps, but if that how changes, that's fine. So you're not going to be so obsessed with that how. For example, maybe someone wants to get a promotion and they want to get promoted to a senior manager position, and they are so fixated on doing that within their company or within that division that they might not realize that within the same company the same position opened up in another department, right? Because you're focused on your initial how. So that's what I mean by letting go of the how a little bit. Yes, plan your steps, know how you're going to get there, but don't get upset and don't get attached to that only vision, because something might come up along the way that is going to be a little bit better. In my view, it worked better for me.
Yeah, and I mean, this is, and I feel like these things and this type of advice is so solid, and we sometimes yeah, underestimate the power of it, because we think like, I got to have my goals and I got to do this and I got to follow the process, and then you do it and then you're like, yeah, why didn't I get my goal? Yeah, because maybe there is something outside there that is telling you, hey, it's not what you want, but where
Mm,
you are is what you need.
pretty
And
much.
I think this is so powerful how you said it, and I think this kind of wisdom comes with as we age and through these discussions. This is why I loved chatting with you like this, because I, even at that moment, I realized, hey, I need to be more conscious of, my agility and my speed, and always pacing forward.
Absolutely.
So
Just
with that,
before we
guys,
dive into the 3 points, can I just, maybe it's just me, technical question, so maybe
please.
everyone's going to be watching this as well, they can understand what's happening. I'm not sure if it's just on my end, but is your view the same, that I see you in the bigger screen and then my view is obviously in the middle? Because I
Yep,
think last time it
that's,
was super cool, you had it side by side.
yeah,
That might be
sorry for that. That's,
no,
let
like
me
this.
see
It's a
if
bit
we
too.
can do it better.
Yeah,
Ah,
better.
sorry. Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's a much better for people to see
yeah,
like what's happening. It feels a
sorry.
bit more
Yeah, good
humane.
point. Yeah, it
Side
should
note
be.
finished.
Yeah, thank you, Timmy. Yeah, there's Timmy. Please welcome Timmy
Thank
again.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, guys, for the start today, we want to talk about three different topics, and to add to the leadership side of things. And as you know, we are still talking a lot about a self leadership principle. That means you need to kind of make sure you fertilize the ground. We are now slowly in spring. That means you need to, carry out that plans. You need to look at where you are at. And the first thing we want to talk about today is positivity. And Barbara Fredrickson, and this is actually the book that I had in mind before. I couldn't come up with the with the
Yes.
author. She talks a lot about positivity in her book and the impact on companies. And I always thought positivity is like, at least if you look across the board, a lot of people think about positivity like naivety. The people who are positive, they are naive. And it might be, in some extent, if you think there are no problems and you just ignore the reality, then yes, you got a problem. Or if you're running to east and hoping to find the sun, probably it will be in the west. But on the other hand, if you use to smile and build kind of positivity into your life more, everything, according to Barbara Fredrickson, improves from your personal life to even companies actually displaying better results across the board, from profit and all these different things. So actually, maybe Timmy, you can give an example how it works in your way, because I mean, one reason why I like these sessions with you is because you're such a positive force. And
Yes.
yeah, I mean, you can see it's within you. A lot of people, this fake it until you make it. And I have my moments when I'm tired and I smile anyway. And my partner says, hey, that was a fake smile.
Yeah, don't do that, please.
Can you maybe describe a period where you weren't so positive, and how positivity came into your life as a leader and
Ooh, I
entrepreneur?
think A lot of times when I wasn't feeling positive all the time, especially when you are dealing with stress or a lot of responsibility. So maybe one example could be when I was actually, that's a good example. When I was living in the jungle in Sri Lanka, we did promise I'm going to talk a little bit about that this time. And it was the time when I realized that I'm now ready to come back to more of the European region, and I'm ready to go back to work as well. I took a nice 8, 9 month break from my career, and I started looking. I was still living in that jungle, and I started looking, and I saw this one role that was based in Barcelona. That's how I ended up living in Barcelona at the time. But by the time I looked at, this was a sales and marketing director position. By the time I looked at the role, it had over 200 applications. And one of my friends who was there with me, he told me like, "Oh, there's no point for you to apply for it now. Like, there's no way you're gonna beat all of those applicants. You're not even there. You don't speak Spanish." All of the excuses, all of the negativity. And obviously, when you are surrounded by that kind of environment, it is going to have an impact on your mind. So at the beginning, I was like, "Oh my God, he's right. Like, what am I thinking? What are my chances? It's not going to happen. Like, why should I even try? I didn't even have all of the requirements that they were asking for, etc." And then I was just like, do you know what? I really resonate with this. I decided that I'm going to call the shots. And if I want that role, I'm going to go for that role. Worst case, they're going to say no, or they're not going to come back to me. But if I'm not even going to try, if I'm not going to take a step forward to see how else it could turn out, then I'm never going to find out. And I just wasted a potential opportunity. Spoiler, I got the job, and they actually interviewed me remotely when I was living in the jungle with all these mosquitoes flying around and monkeys jumping. So it was a really cool interview. And I got the job, so I moved to Barcelona. But that was maybe a very quick example to show you that it wasn't just me not being positive, it was someone else around me who was completely trying to get me demotivated. They were trying to be a bit over realistic, and I had to take a step back and decide that that's not me, that that's not how I function, that sometimes I might be a bit overly optimistic. And that's what I was going to say about people being positive or feeling positive in general. It doesn't always mean that they have to be naive. That's something what I call the false positivity, with the example
Yeah,
that you said,
right.
you're heading east to watch the sunset. So yeah, that's not going to happen. But when you are developing a more positive mindset and you constantly are, or not constantly, but you are more often able to catch yourself that, okay, maybe I'm not thinking right, maybe I'm having a bit of a negativity creeping up in my mind. It happens to all of us. That's when you need to have that courage and the bravery to shift yourself out of that way of thinking. And this is what I call being more optimistic rather than just positive all the time. But yeah, it starts with developing these habits to start thinking more positively about your opportunities as a leader, as well as a human being, and just in general to look at even the toughest challenges. Like sometimes when I have some challenges, I end up laughing because I'm like, okay, now what? Like, show me. Like, I just told you, I think, I'm not sure if it was live already, but we had this chat about my systems that I use for my business. That
Yeah.
over the weekend, literally all of my automation broke. Like everything that I had set up, all my email sequence, everything has gone. So I could have ended up crying or having a nervous breakdown. I was just like, I can't believe this. So I closed down my laptop and I went for a walk. I'm like, no, not today. I can't deal with this. And I laughed it off. I'm like, I'm going to find someone to help me fix this. And I already did. But that was one way of how you can deal with such a situation. And to be able to react to something like that, this is when your positive mindset comes in handy. Or if you are maybe you are closing the quarter. So we are in
Mm.
March. Where are we now? In March, February,
Yeah, yeah,
March.
in April probably closing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the end of quarter one is coming up for many companies. So obviously, a lot of companies have their KPIs, their targets to hit, etc. And if maybe you're realizing that, okay, it didn't go according to plan, either you can start panicking and have a negative mindset that what's the point now? We're not going to hit that target. Or you can find some alternative ways. Okay, maybe we are not going to hit that target, but what is the closest one that we can get to it? What can we do now differently to get a little bit closer to it as a team? Within the department or within the company even. So in my view, this is how it can have an impact on your day-to-day life if you are becoming a bit more conscious about your own reactions.
Yeah. Yeah, you took it in multiple directions, but I love it because I think it shows the humanity in us as humans. And this is what I always think, like, we also, I see it with myself, sometimes overestimate what we can get done in,
Mm.
in a year. And then you think about a decade, and we talked about it a little bit last time, and you give yourself some slack, and you have this discussion, and you realize how quickly we can get down on us, all this mental chatter, like you said, little system breaks here, and you're like, oh man, I have to deliver a report today, and it's like, it,
Yep.
like we have it so fixed in our head, and then everything goes sideways, and we're like, okay, this doesn't work. I have to do something different. And this is, like you said, sometimes closing that laptop and taking a different, I don't know how for you, but for me, I now became better over the years, but like before, I was stressing out of my way.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm trying to force it because I think that works, but that's not how things work, I think, because it's really, and I mean, one thing that I didn't mention about this is the can I concept from Tony Robbins talks about it a lot, about constant and never ending improvement. And you basically talked about it, how that sometimes it is just the fact closing the laptop, but often it's this mindset, like, keep going forward. Like when you went to the jungle, you went to figure things out, and you came back, and then you went to a market where everybody adopted you, and you still did it. And I remember back then we had this discussion, and you were telling me about like the cool stuff you're doing, and then eventually you decided to go for yourself. But this is something I always admired about you. Like you are like so focused on you, where you want to be in life. And it is requires to make tough calls and tough decisions,
Yes.
which is like,
Very tough one sometimes. And I'm not sure how I developed this frame of mind or approach to life, but I think everyone should live like that you need to put your own happiness and your own needs into the forefront of whatever you are doing, because if you're choosing a career or a job or a place to live or a partner or friends, whatever that you want to choose, based on how it looks like on the outside versus how I actually feel happy in this situation, guess what's going to happen in the long term, right? So that's why, exactly, so that's why I think that yes, it takes guts to make those decisions, and maybe sometimes you're not able to do the next step that you want to be doing because you're not in a position, I don't know, because you have some commitment or financially you can't do it or you don't have the time, etc. But at least you can try to tweak some situations around to make you feel a bit happier, and that's when the whole smiling part comes in happy. And about one more thing I was going to add here, when you said about like fake it till you make it, I don't properly agree with that saying, but it is true. It does work. So if you can't just shift your mindset, yes, try to develop those habits to pretend like, okay, I know what I'm doing. This is the direction I'm going, because eventually your brain will catch up with you. But a little story, when I was back in, I don't even know which year, about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I was working in a call center back in the UK, doing the traditional call center call selling, like not the fun job ever. I'm sure you know how it feels as well. At some point, you did something similar, right?
yeah, I did it in my life a lot, and I'm again in sales and marketing, so yeah.
Yeah, but the thing that they did, and it was such a simple trick, it really worked. Every single one of us on our laptops or computers, actually, back then we worked on computers, they had like a little sticky note like this, just with a word that said smile. And it was every single one of the computers that we were working on, and maybe about 1,000 people were in that call center. We had this note constantly staring at us to remind us to smile, because those people that we were speaking to on the other side of the phone, it was a standard phone call back in the days, not Zoom and things like that. They couldn't see your body language, but when you were smiling, your voice and your tone changes. So try it next time when you are speaking. Put a smile on your face when you are dealing with your managers, your peers, or a customer. You're going to come across a lot more friendly. Just how it works. It's not even magic.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to add to it, like I started playing table tennis because I used to play when I was a kid quite competitively, and I for 15 years, more 20, I didn't do anything, and then I picked it up again, and I'm going to this association, and I play there. A lot of times, people are twice my age, old as And there's this one guy, and he was actually a champion in one of the leagues, and he's probably like 75. But every time he comes in, he smiles.
Mm.
And yesterday, for the first time after weeks, playing with him, and it's fun. I told him it's so inspiring to see how positive he is and that he brings this joy. And then he started explaining me how he got sick and he couldn't play. And then he was still explaining with a smile. He said, "Yeah, I mean that's like normal to be like that. But
Nice.
it's so inspiring." And this is what actually you are saying to me. And thinking long term. Also, a lot of these things, guys. Like I see with myself. I wasn't always this positive guy. I used to be a depressed kid, thinking completely differently than I'm thinking today, or not completely, but still, how you are. Probably you also did a lot of the inner work and hard
Oh
work
yes.
to be this, queen with a sword, with a smile on the face. But I want to encourage you, if you are at work where you don't like it or in an environment, sometimes it's just the way we shift our perspective from little things, being grateful, wake up in the morning. And Dwayne Dyer was actually, that's something that always inspired me every morning. You wake up, put your blanket away, sit on the bed, put your feet down. And then he used to say, "Thank you, thank you,
Mm.
thank you." And I mean, for me, when I think about it, I get shivers because this is like this fundamental basic thing, but it gives you this gratitude. I mean, where is gratitude? There can't be no fear. There can't be anything else opposite to that because that just love replaces everything. Gratitude, passion, awe. And I think cultivating these emotions a little bit more. And this is what I see with you. Like you're very resourceful, how you think, and you already know yourself. You close the laptop, you go for the walk, just like myself. Yeah, so I want to encourage you guys to really look into this and rethink this concept. It's not just for the positive folk out there, but it will make you happier in life, more successful,
And at
and
work.
and it works. You will reduce stress by didn't look at the science, but a lot, and you will increase the lifespan. You're gonna have fun a little bit more in life. And it goes a little bit with the second point we want to get into today is really bringing joy and energy into your steps. And that means looking into having fun how you work. And I'm actually curious about your perspective on this one because again, I think this is a nice perspective. You are kind of self-employed and I'm exploring different things, but among that, I'm having job which I think is really cool and just so cool to see how everybody's different. And you said before something very profound, sparkling challenge. We
Oh
were
yes.
talking about this, building the purpose and radiating energy. Can you maybe say a little bit what it means for you, bringing the joy and energy every day into what you do?
Yes, it's just allowing yourself to be who you are in short. But if you want my longer answer, I'm happy to go into that as well. But that's exactly what it starts with, because if you're in any kind of situation, either at work or at home or with your friends, doesn't matter where you are. But if you are in a situation that does not allow you to completely be yourself, and by that I mean like being all of your weirdness, your craziness, like your vulnerability, everything to the forefront and showing people and the world who you really are deep within, then that's exactly when you're going to feel that dimming of that joy and of that spark, because you're not going to be sparkling. And I use this term because in the notes, before I jumped on this call with you, you mentioned it's kind of like going through the Spartan challenge, and I half joked about this, saying it is like the sparkling challenge, like trying to find your spark and turn up the light within you. And that's it's going to have to come down to like understanding who you are, first of all, not just as a leader in your role, but understanding who you are as a person. Like, what am I? If I take your job title away, if I take your CV away and erase it, who are you? Because many people will ask you like, hey, I'm Timmy, what do you do? Or hey, hi Matteo, what do you do? We ask straight away and we try to label people by their job titles, and that's not who you are. That's part of what you do, but that's not who you are. So I would recommend this little exercise to everyone who's watching, especially the replay as well, to try to understand how could you define yourself. Like, who are you if you remove your job title? Who are you if you completely erase your entire professional background? How would you then describe yourself? And once you looked at it, then you can look at your current role and your current goals as well, and try to figure out like, am I in line with who I am? Am I doing something that I truly am about? Do I allow myself to be my authentic self in every situation? So for me personally, that was a big turning point when I figured out that I wasn't always the real me, especially at work. And that's what led me to becoming an entrepreneur and doing my own thing, because I'm choosing my clients as well that I really want to be hanging out with and working with, not just to make a quick profit. So figure things out in your day-to-day activities. If you, I'm not saying to quit your job, please don't do that if you're happy there, but
And I wanted to say something on that because that's
yeah.
obviously a big one. I know for some of you who will listen to this and maybe the replay, you will think like, yeah, Timmy, that's very nice, but I can't quit my job. I need to pay my bills. And of course, this is not one we don't want to say. And I'm happy you brought it up because sometimes it means you need to switch. If
Mm.
we go back to the initial principles and where you were, we were talking about principle number 3, and then we moved it up to 1, and you said, hey, maybe you are in a toxic environment, switch. And I want to encourage you because now is a tough time, and a lot of you will be afraid to switch because you think like, economic downturn is coming, and I'm not so brave as Timmy to go, going self-employed. So reach out to Timmy, reach out to me if you need any advice or how we would go about it. But follow your gut. I think this is what you basically said, and I think this is so important. I realize it as well. There are employers out there where you can be yourself, and it's hard. I definitely acknowledge that, and this is also why I understand your choice to me,
Mm.
kind of doing your thing. And this is also why I have projects next to what I'm doing, because I know I can express myself creatively. Although at work it's possible, it's different.
It's different, yeah.
And I think this is something that whatever sparks your creativity, I hope it brings you to thinking on different levels. And one is what you said to me. I think it's really profound. And this is also why I wrote it there. If I take your title and CV away, who are you? I mean, this is massive. I'm just gonna display it for you guys one more time. That's I think this is profound, and I realize as well in my career, for the time what I have done in my earlier career, also especially where I'm coming from, I always had to fight and feed for myself, and it's hard if people take away your titles, your accomplishments, we strip away our ego, and we suddenly feel like very vulnerable because we are
Mm.
like, what do I have to give? Oh, I cannot show anymore. I'm so smart, and we always think we have to be someone, to be somewhere, to mimic people and follow people because it will make us look better. But I think this is what you're saying, like all the joy and energy comes a lot, and the freedom and the I guess the release of energy comes from being yourself. And this is
Exactly. I just want to give maybe a couple of little specific examples for people who are not into looking into maybe starting their own business, or they're not looking to quit their jobs, because as you mentioned, that a lot of people are not necessarily unhappy in their roles. And this is not about like career advice anyway, just the little tips. But if any of you actually need some connections for career coaches, I have some great connections, so let me know. I'm happy to intro you with them. But when it comes to your day-to-day role, especially at work, if you're not like feeling completely yourself, try to maybe speak to your managers, try to speak to your team, try to speak to a colleague, try to see what little things you can implement in your during your working hours. Like, can you maybe take a slightly longer lunch break just to hang out with your colleague and socialize a little bit, but then you can make up for the extra hour maybe at the end of your shift? Or can you organize something for your team to do a bit of team building activity? Can you maybe be a little bit kinder to the new intern who's asking you a million questions, or little things like that to make you realize that you can have a major impact on people around you, especially if you are in a more like a traditional office environment. When you are surrounding yourself with a lot of people, you're going to be impacting each other throughout the day. Even if you're working remotely, you're still going to be interacting with people. So try to see ways that you can bring a bit of fun and a bit of joy into your work activity. And I'm not saying like put your feet up and do nothing, but you can actually progress with a project or have a creative brainstorming session to come up with a more creative idea with your team by removing that very strict expectation that you're putting on yourself and on your team. And that's when you can really figure out that I can bring a bit of spark, I can bring my energy into what I do. And you will see that that's when you are actually delivering amazing results, when you see things from a different perspective and you are enjoying what you're doing. So maybe for the next I don't know, strategy meeting or a team huddle or whatever you have coming up, just I don't know, tell a joke or something. See what happens, bring a bit of fun to the game and just roll with it.
Yeah, and I think with that comes also one thing before we move to the next principle. Don't take yourself so seriously. This is a big one for me. Like every new stage in life will question, you will question yourself. You will question your self-worth, you will question your principles, you will question what you have learned, you will question your methods. Things won't work as they used to work. You will need to retool, you will need to reskill. And that sometimes will throw away a lot of the things you build, or not even throw, but if you build from wood and suddenly you move to a new era where stone is available, you might use stone instead to reinforce the foundations. And that doesn't mean you're stupid. That doesn't mean you are inadequate and you're not enough. And I think this is also the big part of, or the frame I use: progress, not perfection. It's
Mm.
about really doing the small calculated steps along the way, and know that it doesn't define you if you use wood and not and not brick yet. It's totally fine. Just find your way, what Timmy is talking about, because your self-worth really sometimes, just back to what you said, if we take all the titles, all the CVs, and all the things away, it doesn't make you better or worse. It's
Mm.
just who you are. And I think if we, and I mean, normally as we get older, we probably become a little bit more better at dealing with
Yes.
that. We give less crap or more crap on what other people think, because if you think about it, and you're 100 years old, like my grandfather's, my girlfriend's grandmother, she just passed away, unfortunately, in COVID, because she couldn't move anymore so freely. But she really didn't give a crap what people were thinking about her, and she was taking care of herself. She was walking, and she was super bright in her head. She didn't want to pass away. She's like, only just her body failed because she was old. But this is something, if I think about myself that age, probably older you get, you're very grateful for these discussions. You're like, well, I wish I would listen to myself when I was 30 and
Yes.
35 or 40.
That's
Yeah. So
homework for you. Maybe like set a reminder now and watch back this conversation 5 years from today or something and see what you think about it and give you a bit of a reminder to yourself. But you're absolutely
that's
right about these
absolutely
examples.
right. And I just want to post it here for you guys. As you could see, I'm posting these little reminders for you. So you learn as well something along the way. And then it's just not a passive learning, because this is what we are also very good at in this consumer um, economy, where everybody's consuming left, right, but it doesn't add any value. So please apply
I have a
everything.
question though. Like, what if like in 5 years' time we don't have YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook anymore, or laptops, and we just have these implants in our brains? Like, how can we then watch it? We need to come with a plan B, contingency planning, right?
Yeah, I think it's the whole metaverse, and I don't think it's gonna be in 5 years, but it's a good question. It eventually will, and I mean something else will replace it. All these different TikToks that we were talking about, and of this world will help to make this world a better. And I think humans are very good at adapting to anything that comes our way. But
True.
valid point. I mean, all these different Google glasses and stuff probably will. I think people are still skeptical towards some stuff, and eventually will adapt it when we pass the mass. But it's
We will see.
definitely a good idea to record, at least for now.
We will see what happens in 5 years.
So, Timmy, you want to talk a little bit about a third point?
Yes, that's my absolute favorite,
That's what I thought.
which is drum roll, please. It's about taking action. Any kind of action. So it's what you kind of leaned into this conversation already, or this topic about having some kind of continued progress. And it doesn't mean that you have to execute everything constantly all the time and you don't have to aim for perfection. What it means is doing something. If you know where you want to get to, and if you know where you want to develop as a leader, or what you want to do with your role or as a person, whatever your personal goal is, do something for it. Even if it's just a little tiny thing, maybe doing a bit of research, maybe reaching out to a few people, maybe asking for constructive feedback, maybe reading about the certain topics that you know that it's probably your weakness and you're not really good at something. Do something. And I have this absolutely simplified but incredibly powerful sentence. I don't know who said it. I wish I did, but I don't. But it's a very simple statement. And I think I might have told you this, Matteo, before. Like the saying goes, nothing changes if nothing changes. Okay. So if you are expecting something to change around you in your job, in your environment, in your family, in your health, doesn't matter where, if you're not going to make any kind of changes, then don't expect anything to change around you. I honestly don't know who said it, but it was a genius. And I'm so grateful for that one sentence. So, homework, please find out who said this, because it clearly tells you that you don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to set yourself really like unachievable goals or targets, but you can do a little bit. You can just wake up in the morning and review what you wanted to do. That's already something, okay? Or you can come up with a new idea. You can look back on your achievements and feel grateful how much you've achieved already. And you can just do a little thing like having a conversation like this with someone and talk about what you want to be achieving, so that you are constantly keeping that in your mind and taking some kind of action, because you are moving forward. And I kind of explained this a little while ago, that it's kind of like you're setting things into motion. So just energetically speaking, not spiritual energetics, but physical energetics. So going back to physics for a second, like imagine that you have like a metal ball here, like a small one, or an item, and another one here. If I'm going to roll this ball and it hits this other item, obviously it's going to have an impact. So either it starts moving or it's going to fall, right? Because I set things into motion. If this ball and this item stays here forever, nothing is going to happen, right? You need to set things into motion, which in this example will be the little metal ball to hit this thing. So things are moving and things are escalating. And when you are taking action, you are opening up opportunities around you because you are moving things in your space. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to explain here with my lovely demonstration?
It's beautiful, and I just wanted to write it. If you take action, you really, things start to happen, and I think it's profound. Really, like you said, nothing changes if nothing changes, and I think this is beautiful, like you explained it, because it just shows how we overestimate and underestimate the power of taking action. Like what Nike says, just do it. And I think this overthinking, over strategizing, I'm definitely good at that. But over the years, I learned, just bumble into it. And if you make, a couple mistakes here and there, it's fine. That means you're progressing, you're doing something. And
Curious to hear your opinion, because you're so good at sometimes not taking action. But what do you think is the most common problem, or not even problem? What do you think is the most common fear from people for taking action? Why don't they take action usually?
yeah, I mean, in my earlier career, I think in my first job, when I had to, and then I come to your question, when I had to, build a plan here, there, and I did it like elaborately for weeks and stuff. And then I went to the market and I thought, okay, this is totally different than what I built. And
Mm,
I think why people don't take action, it's very simple. It's fear of failure. It's fear of being ridiculed, fear of, being laughed at. I mean, we are social creatures. Think about, public speaking. Think of what we are doing here with Timmy. I mean, it feels like I'm sitting in my living room, you're sitting in your living
yeah,
room, and then you have some online audience.
literally.
But, I remember when I used to do this public speaking trainings, and it was scary. I mean, you stand in a room with 50, 100 people, and then you need to give a speech. Even if it's prepared, we are afraid of social, being ridiculed, being looked upon and look at. And I think on the other side also the coin, we sometimes think that when we do something and it doesn't work, it's going back to our self-worth. We
Ah,
are not
okay.
good
Yeah.
enough. We are, maybe we don't have the capability yet, but there's the word yet. And I think this is also comes with all the points we talked about positivity, bringing joy into your steps, because all these things accumulate. Think about it, all that what we did above, like you said, my system didn't work last weekend, you closed the laptop. What did you do? You could be sitting and you could be, angrily pounding the keyboard. Maybe you did it for 5 minutes, but then you already were like, hey Timmy, I know you, this doesn't work. We tried it in the past, and we used to go for a walk, on the beach. We come back energized and we try something different. And I think
Mm,
this is why human beings, and this is why I see also with myself and having these discussions that you said before, It's so crucial. It's not nice to have, it's a must have. Even for me, I'm forcing myself constantly on a forcing. For me, it's now a breeze to talk to you like this because it's just fun. But it challenges me to constantly think about, what I have done today, maybe an area where I was like, hey, I'm slacking here, I'm actually not giving my best, and I could be challenge just through this simple discussion, having you there sitting and not even talking about that area, challenging me, saying, hey man, just be honest with yourself, and say, hey, you need to retool, you need to reskill. And I think this is the foundation of the third point you're talking about, the tiny progress that we need to do every day. It's
Mhm.
really being frank and honest with yourself, and sometimes really say, hey man, or hey gal, I'm not good enough here, let's look, how can I improve? And I think you're brilliant at this,
Do
Timmy,
you want to know
because
my secret? Shall I
yes,
share it with everyone?
this is what I
It's a
was
really
actually
cool
trying to
practical
hinting
tip.
at.
And I learned this from an actual coach that I worked with many, many
Okay,
years ago. Because I was like that as well. I wasn't always taking action, believe it or not.
really,
And
I
that's
can't
what
believe it.
I
I
was
know
very.
you're only like a massive action. I remember the projects we were working on. You were like, okay, let's do this, and then sprint style and OKR and this, and I'm like, huh, I like it.
Yes, I like taking action. I'm very decisive as well. Probably comes from my character as well. But for some people, it doesn't come naturally to be like that. And I'm speaking mainly to those people now who maybe feel that, okay, I'm not quite sure. I know I should take action, but I'm a bit maybe too shy or too scared, or I'm confused. So or I'm scared, what you mentioned with the fear, and that's exactly why I wanted to ask your view on that, because that was the exact situation with me. The reason why I wasn't taking action back then was the fear of, what if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? So that's usually the bottom line. And I had the same issue as well I had to deal with. And what this coach that I work with, he really helped me with, he actually made me write down my list of fears. He made me do it. And it was so good to make me realize that what my rational brain was coming up with, my ego was throwing all of these crazy possibilities that were so unlikely to happen, completely overthinking the situation. And he literally made me write down all of my fears. And on my next session, we went through every single one of those fears and we looked at, okay, what if this fear becomes your reality? Then what happens? Describe the situation. What do you do? What is the impact of that? What are the consequences? So it was a very radical exercise, because it is obviously based on fear and bringing your fears to the surface. But it really helped me understand that even if all of my fears become reality, it's not the end of the world. Like, literally, like, my world is not going to fall apart. I'm going to bounce back up. So I think if someone who's really struggling with taking a little bit of action, try to identify, like, what is it that I'm really afraid of, or scared of, because usually it comes down to that, as you mentioned, what if they laugh at me? What if I fail? What if I don't live up to whatever is expectations? Like, do things for yourself, don't do it for others.
Yeah, a word. It's powerful, and it also reminds me of being true to who I am. And sometimes you create this version of yourself. At least I was very good at it, and I still am. And I think there is always this empowering side. You see yourself improving, and you're competing with yourself. This is what I learned from sports. Don't compete against your opponents. Compete with yourself. But
Mm.
then sometimes you can create also this version that is unrealistic, and maybe unrealistic for the next 5 years, but maybe in 10 years very easily. Like you said at the beginning of the discussion, think what you have accomplished, be grateful for that. And I think this is also the opposite when we fail. Like, when you stretch yourself, and this is why you guys here, if you're listening to this, and even if you don't and you listen to the replay, I praise you, I really appreciate you, because you're stretching yourself. 99% of people don't do their work because they think things come to me naturally. And just reading a book, from some of you might seen it on my LinkedIn, or rereading from Angela Duckworth about grit. And this
Mm.
is the whole thing we're talking about, is really about perseverance, determination, about direction, and knowing where you want to go. And there, Angela describes in this book really eloquently how a lot of people actually relying on talent. A lot of the big four, a lot of these, consulting companies, they do this thorough process to hire A players, and it's great. A lot of people are smart, but she displayed throughout his training, she studied soldiers and she studied, professional musicians. A lot of people who actually win are not those talents, are
Mm.
people actually who are like you and me, and people out there, I mean, you audience, who are listening to this, and you're like, even this listening to these two crazy people for 1 hour adds some value to my life, and it questions my values. It questions whether I'm doing my best. And this is why we do it. Just busting this goodness in your ears. It's such so powerful.
Oh, I
And
love this sentence. Busting the goodness in your ears. Good.
I think it's something we have to do it more often and more practice what we preach. And again, over the years, we are just becoming a little bit, I would say, maybe better sometimes, but sometimes worse because we constantly going through these stages. And once you have your people in your life that you trust and that you believe in, and your corner man, if you will, or your corner woman, then you know that there are people who actually can point out your blind spots. And I think this is very, very good for all of us where we're going. So guys, these are the three principles. I see we are again almost busted through the entire
I know we
hour.
can talk for hours, right?
Yeah. So uh, remember, smile a lot. So that's the solid foundation. Sometimes you will need to fake it until you make it. There is also book about smiling and mirror work from um, now I dropped the name. Hay Louise Hay. So Louise Hay, she's a lot on the mirror work. So kind of looking and see what comes up. I think that would resonate with what you do, Timmy, a lot.
Totally a lot, yeah. Be
Uh,
careful
but
with that too.
but also like the smiling in general is very powerful. So definitely try it out. Bring more joy into your steps, into what Timmy was talking about, whatever you do, projects, and make sure you progress towards your goals daily. I think it goes really hand in hand with all of these, because when you are in a positive state, like on the weekend I decided to study on a course, and then I set the scene because I know myself. I can quickly procrastinate, and then if I open 5 windows on my desktop, I'm like, oh, this was interesting. I didn't finish it, and half an hour later, I'm like,
I
dude,
relate to
you're
that.
supposed to study. So this is the danger, right? We have the smartest engineer in the world designing these applications, whether that's Netflix, whether that's all these different things that keep popping from different corners. So you need to be diligent what you're doing. This is also why you need to master productivity and maybe calendar reminders. This is something I'm implementing in my life more often. To-do list works for some, works not for others, but having kind of your vision and maybe your goals set up. I have like my life goals. I have my different sections, like 3 year goals, where I have maybe 5 goals underneath, and then I'm revisiting those for these different areas, whether it's health, business, fitness, finances. And then I have my, I call it a Friday finishers or weekend finishers, where I know, okay, these are the needle moving projects. And I think this is like, there are different ways, the Pomodoro technique and all these different things. To me, probably is the master at all of these, but just
Not always in practice, yeah.
no, but anyways, there's a lot of ways to, like Todoist is a great productivity tool, but in the end, it's about, like Timmy said, the tiny action. And this is what I learned. Sometimes you need to drop all the huge, chunky projects and just focus putting one foot in front of the other. And this is kind of where I'm going back to, because sometimes, like now in these turbulent times, a lot of you going back to the corporate or maybe being an entrepreneur, you might be a little bit scared, and you listen to this and you're like, yeah, I actually want to go self-employed and I want to maybe get the promotion and where I'm working. So be brave, be brave, take action. You can, it can always backfire, and it always will. You can expect that things will not go as you planned them to go, but if you don't take the action, you will regret it way more. And this, I'm saying it with grace and positivity in my heart, because I'm looking at Timmy, and every time I see her, I get inspired. I know she doesn't have it rosy, but she's trying. And you're like that's why I always say a princess with a sword, a queen with a sword.
I've been upgraded to queen, I think, last time we agreed
You're
on
queen. You're obviously queen by now.
that. Thank you. But yeah,
Timmy,
conversations
any
like these, I think, super important for everyone. So if you guys watched it and you liked it, just let us know as well, like how it helps you to shift your mindset and how it helped you to energize you a little bit, because that was our overall aim with this, to give you a bit of clarity, a bit of push, a bit of direction, a bit of energy boost basically. So it would be lovely to hear. Just reach out to Matteo directly or to me as well if you've got any questions. I would love to hear the feedback. It's always nice to get the feedback about these calls. And find someone around you, either within your friends or network or professional network, that you can have conversations like this. That's what I'm trying to say, because these chats, little behind the scenes secrets revealed, we don't practice these conversations. Okay, all we do, like what you see, is a natural flow, because we have this kind of connection, and we found and established this kind of connection, and it wasn't just something that happened overnight. We constantly, both of us, made an effort. I'm a lot worse in this case because I disappear sometimes, but it takes time as well to develop such connections. So if you don't have someone like what we have here, like how we can talk about certain things so openly in front of a live audience and not feel like, oh my God, what's happening? But just having the natural flow to it, find someone in your life that you can have these kind of conversations with.
Yeah, and I think this is worth again. I mean, this is powerful, and for that, guys, also because some of you last time asked about if these sessions are recorded. So I created a little community where I'm saving these recordings, and we obviously need way more input and to progress it maybe to the next level, where we could go live there in the community for some specific topics once we go through this. But again, we are early in this setting, and if you are interested, please reach out to me or to me. Please connect with Timmy as well personally if you need. I think what you do with your coaches, with your mentees, and your work, I think is brilliant. I mean, I've been following you for a couple of years now. How you think, and also the feedback from you guys from the last session shows that you really like the energy and you like what we do here. And this can disappear, like you said, Timmy, really quickly. So if you struggle to connect, reach out to us. We can add you to this community, and maybe we can start something there as well, so you feel not left behind, because LinkedIn is a massive beast, and a lot of these things don't get tackled because it's such a business behemoth, and it just focuses purely on that, and a lot of this kind of softer side of things are left out. And yeah, and again, I loved it. Thank you, Timmy, for your input. I really,
Thank
every
you
time
as
picking your
well.
brain, it's a pleasure for me. And I mean it, because I always, we do debrief and we chat time to time as well. So, any final thoughts for our
Just a
audience?
massive thank you to you as well for being so resilient and making these sessions happen, because this is something that we spoke about for a super long time.
That's
And
true.
if it wasn't because of you, we would not be doing this. So I just want to say a massive thank you for that, for making this happen, and keep making this happen basically for the next few weeks. I think we've got how many more of
Yeah,
these?
so guys, that's a very good one. So we have actually few more. So we have three. So we have probably another, yeah, maybe six, seven more. So that's probably 1, 2 sessions, and then if Timmy is up to the task, we can move to the team leadership, which
Level
could
2.
be level 2. And again, please bring your input, bring your insights. I know a lot of you this evening, you might having dinner and you thought maybe we're starting at 7. We will keep you posted, probably about 2 weeks time, again another session with Timmy. So keep an eye on LinkedIn and all the other media, and please reach out in between if you have any questions. Okay, until the next time, guys. Thank you, Timmy.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Thanks again. Bye.